What are the different levels of the revised Bloom's taxonomy? Let us discover this and find out. The first level of the revised Bloom's taxonomy is remember. This stage of learning is about memorizing basic facts, dates, events, persons, places, concepts, and patterns. This means retrieve, recall, or recognize relevant knowledge from a long-term memory. For example, recall dates of important event in a U.S. history, or remember the components of a bacterial cell. So, the appropriate learning outcome verb for this level include define, describe, identify, label, list, match, name, outline, quote, recall, report, reproduce, retrieve, show, state, tabulate, and tag. The next level of the revised Bloom's taxonomy is understand. At this point, learners might be asked to explain a concept in their own words, describe a mathematical graph, or clarify a metaphor. Demonstrate the comprehension through one or more forms of explanation. For example, classify a mental illness or compare a ritual practices in two different religions. So, the appropriate learning outcome verbs for this level include abstract, arrange, articulate, associate, categorize, clarify, classify, compare, compute, conclude, contrast, defend, diagram, differentiate, discuss, distinguish, estimate, exemplify, explain, extend, extrapolate, generalize, give examples of, illustrate, infer, interpolate, interpret, match, outline, paraphrase, predict, rearrange, reorder, rephrase, represent, restate, summarize, transform, and translate.
Stage is apply. It is where the time that the learners will apply their knowledge in a particular situation, and it is also where the time that the students will describe a phenomena in a scientific paper using terms and concept of another paper. The process of the stage is executing. It is where the students will apply a procedure to a familiar task, and the second process is implementing. It is opposite from executing because learners in the portion will apply a procedure into an unfamiliar task. The fourth stage is analyze. During this level, students were supposed to break down the concept and examine the relationship between the presented ideas. Learners in this portion might be asked to recognize the genre of the particular idea or describe the leading cause of it. This level is associated with three particular processes. The first one is differentiating, which means distinguishing the important and unimportant from relevant to irrelevant parts of the presented materials. The second one is organizing. It involves identifying how elements fit or function within a structure. And lastly, the attributing, which means determining a point of view, bias and values, or intent of the underlying presented materials.
So the next stage is evaluate. Justify a stand or decision. It is based on the concept of appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critique, and weigh. Learners are expected to point out logical flaws in arguments and compare a specific work to the highest level because at this stage, learners are expected to be using their knowledge and skills to appraise a situation, justify the response or decision, and criticize the opinions of others. This stage is divided into checking and critiquing. So, checking is concerned with detecting inconsistencies or problems in a process or product. For example, if you want to find out and determine whether a particular work was based on observed data or on reliable data. Critiquing, on the other hand, is focused on identifying inconsistencies between a product and external criteria. An example of this is when someone makes a decision which of two methods is the most effective in solving a particular problem. And create is the top and most complex of the learning process. Produce new or original work. It is based on the design, assemble, contract, conjecture, develop, formulate, author, and investigate concepts. Learners in the stage combine known patterns, ideas, and facts to create an original work or to formulate a solution to a certain problem. This stage has three associated cognitive processes. First, the process of generating, which involves creating an alternative hypothesis based on the criteria. Second is planning, which involves coming up with a procedure for completing a task. And finally, the process of producing includes the process of creating a product. Let us have a general example of these three processes. Let's say someone wants to write a short story. So, in the process of generating, one must consider or come up with a variety of ideas needed for writing a short story. Then, in the planning process, one must, of course, plan the procedure for how he or she will complete the short story. Then, as a result of generating and planning, one will be able to create a short story that is part of the producing process.